Hello there, people of the internet. So the other day I was doing what I do, browsing the internet, seeing what I could see, and I ended up coming across a really good opportunity, and I decided to take up this opportunity, and I ended up with a Beaumont. This right here is extraordinarily similar to a lot of the other black powder guns that I've explored that are from this time frame. Basically, any time from like the 1870s to the late 1890s, maybe mid 1890s. There were a lot of countries out there that were experimenting with black powder bolt action repeating rifles. Oftentimes they were single shots, but a lot of times they added some sort of magazine system to go along with it. And I've checked out all sorts of variations of these. Like I've checked out Gras rifles. I got an 11 millimeter 1871 84 Mauser. I think that's the designation for that. We've checked out the 4570 trapdoor Springfield and the 5070 trapdoor Springfield, and this right here just kind of falls into that same sort of category. This is the 11 millimeter Beaumont. It's an 11 millimeter cartridge. I can't quite remember what caliber that is. I think it's like a 47 caliber, somewhere around that ballpark. It's a nice, fat, heavy bullet that would be traveling probably about, rough estimations, we'll call it 14 to 1500 feet per second. Originally, these Beaumont rifles, they were single shot. However, they did exactly what the Italians did with the same sort of magazine systems, which is why these look so similar to the Italian Vetterli Vitali system. This right here is the Dutch Beaumont Vitali. I think that is correct. They converted their single shot rifles to be able to hold more ammunition inside their magazine. So I think that this right here holds 4 rounds. It might be 4 plus 1 or 3 plus 1, but it holds either 4 or 5 rounds. I think it's 3 plus 1 because 11 millimeter is a pretty gosh darn large cartridge. But this particular one, I managed to get for a really, really good deal just because I won it at an auction and no one else seemed to really be bidding on it. So unfortunately, it is sporterized, but realistically, this gun is 150 years old, and I'm sure that it's been through just the absolute ringer. Maybe not as bad as like the guns from Ethiopia and whatnot, but I'm sure that this thing has still seen and done plenty. So what I did was I just took this thing out of the box and I set it down and I put up the camera and I'm like, hey, let's go ahead and film a video looking at this thing. So right off the bat, I'm noticing that the bluing on this is quite nice considering how aged it is. On the bolt itself is where I see a bunch of wear. Now, the bolt itself was disassembled whenever I had gotten it. It was sent by mail. It's an antique. Antiques can be sent right to your door. A lot of people will tell you, because on the ATF websites, that antique firearms are firearms that have not available ammunition on the commercial market. That is not true. That is the 1935 NFA definition, which was amended by the 1968 Gun Control Act. By current U.S. law, any firearm made in or before 1898, regardless of the ammunition they use or how available it is considered antique and it can be shipped right to your door. You don't have to do FFLs or paperwork or anything like that. That's one of the things that makes these so fantastic. That being said, 11 millimeter Beaumont is basically unobtainable. So I have like 11 millimeter Gras dies and 11 millimeter German Mauser dies, and I'm hoping that I can make those work for this cartridge. Wish me luck, we'll see how well that goes. But if I look on the side of this thing, I can see 1877 right on the side, so this is definitely an antique. And I see very confusing sights. I have no idea how these sights are supposed to work. They got like a screw on them for an adjuster. Do you have to unscrew that adjuster in order to make adjustments? But then there's nowhere for this to adjust or lock into. I have no idea. Maybe this sight is incomplete and I'm missing something since this is a sporterized rifle. So the Beaumont rifles are a little unusual. They don't have the typical firing pin spring that you think of. They actually have a leaf spring built into the bolt handle itself, which is really cool, really unusual. I think these are the only styles of rifles that have that. But if you look on the bolt itself, you'll see a screw on the actual bolts, and that is to hold that leaf spring in, and that is the spring that is used to cock and fire this rifle. So the firing pin in this looked alright. The magazine in this, the magazine cutoff and everything, this seems to work. I have no doubts that if I were to load some ammunition for this, it would probably work reasonably well. The extractor and the ejector also look good, complete, and whole. The amount of money I spent on this rifle, like the bolt alone, is worth what I spent here. And the rifle itself is pretty gosh darn good. It seems to be in good condition. We've already checked to make sure that it is clear. There's no 11mm Beaumont anywhere around where I'm at. Just gonna look inside the bore real quick, shine a light into it. I got it shining on the light up top on my ceiling. That bolt is nice, or that bore is nice and shiny and clean. It doesn't look like this rifle was used very heavily. So in terms of a locking system with this rifle, I'm fairly certain that the only locking system on this rifle is the actual bolt handle resting on the receiver itself. This was very common and typical for the time period where these rifles were being used. And it's not exactly the strongest of designs, but for black powder, that is definitely more than adequate to be able to handle the pressures that black powder produced. So these do take metallic cartridges. They're not like a paper firing system like, say, a Shospo would be, where you have a paper cartridge with a priming compound inside the cartridge itself, and there's an actual needle that goes up from the breech face and stabs into the cartridge. This right here takes a very modern looking brass case. If I were to show you guys a cartridge from this particular time period, it would look very similar to like a big bore brush gun cartridge that we would see nowadays. The only difference is it would be loaded with black powder, and it would probably be paper patched. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but if I had to make a bet, I'd say it would probably be paper patched. So everything on this seems functional. I'm going to put a bunch of pressure on my sear engagement here, pull the trigger. There we go, just to make sure I don't break my 150-year-old firing pin. So that did drop. The trigger is functional. The magazine is functional. Everything about this gun is functional. I've even got sights on it. A lot of times whenever I get sporterized firearms, it will come without sights, and it will be like drilled and tapped for a scope, but I'm betting that this was probably sporterized long before scopes were mainstream. So there is no drill and tap on this rifle. I'm going to look around and see if I can find a proper stock for it, because man, having a complete Beaumont rifle would be sweet. If I can't find it, no harm done, no foul. This is still a fully functioning 11mm Beaumont that I'm absolutely going to be taking to the range. Our crown right here looks pretty good as well, but it almost looks like this barrel's been cut down a little bit. I'm not sure how long these rifles actually were, but I'm betting that they're probably, yeah, I'm betting that barrel was cut down, because I'm betting they're probably on par with the long rifles of yesterday. So if I compare it to like my 7184 Mauser over there, it is quite a deal shorter. So this barrel must have been cut at some point, which is fine. That's not exactly a deal breaker there, but that does make the idea of finding a stock a little bit more challenging. Maybe I'll turn it into a carbine version. We can see right here on the bottom of the barrel how it's nice and shiny. I'm betting that right there was where old wood furniture used to sit. I'm betting that it had some sort of stock or lower handguard or something like that, where the stock went all the way out to probably about right here, and then the nose cap attached. I'm not entirely sure what all happened there or what that is supposed to be, but I do know that it's all nice and shining. I'm betting that it's from rubbing and wear and tear from a piece of wood constantly being up against it. So the wood probably ended right about there at some point within this rifle's life. So since this thing is as old as it is, there's absolutely no telling what it's been through, what it's seen, what it's done. But I do know what it's going to do. It's going to be a staple on my channel, and we're going to take it out, enjoy ourselves, have a gosh darn good time with it. And I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get brass for this thing, or at least how to make brass. I'm going to have to find some load data for it. Luckily, they take the same sort of 45 caliber projectiles, I think, as the 4570, a 458 diameter bullet, which is good because I got a bullet mold for that. So now all I think I have to do is find that brass and figure out a good way to get it loaded with the dies. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.